give her out. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Well done, gentlemen.
My nerves. I was fine back here and then all of a sudden. Thanks, Jonathan.
More settled out there than I was.
Were you?
Poor Thomas. We give him a pretty bad rap, don't we? We're going to get back to Thomas towards the end of our discussion this morning. But first, I'd like to start with something that happened to me this summer. We were coming back from Silverwood, and just me and Asher. And 6-year-olds, they say some pretty funny things sometimes, don't they? 4-year-olds, 5, 6, we've got a couple in that range, and we're trying to write down all the funny things we hear out of their mouths. But our 6-year-old is starting to say things that you would expect more from a teenager. You know what I mean? And so we're going home, and we're hungry, and we drove by Del Taco. Strangest of things, because I would always go there, you know. You can get a pretty good, sizable meal for not so much money. But today we were splurging. This was me and my guy. I had a good day at work, and so we were going to go somewhere extra special. Panda Express. The splurge of splurges. As we get close to Panda Express, Asher kind of has a puzzled look on his face. We don't go there often. Maybe he's never even been there before, I'm not sure. We're waiting in line, and I'm ordering some food, a bunch of different things, and he's trying to interject what he wants, and I'm ignoring it a little bit as I'm ordering a bunch of different things. And we start to pull to the window, and he's not very happy about this decision, this splurge. And I say, Asher, don't worry, you're gonna like it. And something I've never heard from his mouth before, and this might have been the first time he's ever said it, he says, I doubt it. And I rolled my eyes because I'm pretty sure he rolled his. And I look and I kind of chuckle and I say, who are you? What does that even mean? He's like, I don't know. But he knew that it fit. He knew somehow that it meant that he's not so sure about my choices here. And he said, I doubt it. Is there a difference when I say it this way? I doubt it. Versus, I doubt it. Do you hear the difference? Is there a totally different meaning there? I doubt it. Versus, I doubt it. What does doubt mean? You may doubt your duct tape job and how long it's going to hold. You may doubt just how good for you kale and beets really are. You may doubt somebody's intentions when they don't respond to your texts for hours and days. Sorry, Doug. I eventually did get back to him. You may doubt God. You might doubt God's grace or just how free it is. You might doubt the idea or the doctrine of eternally burning hell. Or maybe you doubt the investigative judgment, whatever that is. Or one I heard from a friend here just this last week as we were discussing Revelation with our Pacific U seminar. You may doubt God's timing. Why is God allowing all of this evil and the atrocities that we're witnessing to persist for so long? And you might be right in doubting God's timing, depending on what doubt means. I doubt it, or I doubt it. Well, perhaps there's a reason for doubt, and perhaps there is not. In this case of Panda Express, what do you think happened? Did Asher enjoy what Dad got him? Were his doubts confirmed? or were his doubts vanquished? He liked it. He liked it. I have a rhyme for you this morning, and I'd like your help in finishing this rhyme. Doubt is good and doubt is bad. Knowing this behooves us. It has power in your heart, so give it all to Jesus. Doubt is good and doubt is bad. Knowing this behooves us. It has power in your heart, so give it all to Jesus. What does behooves us mean? That's not a word that we use too often. It essentially means that it's your duty or your responsibility. Knowing the difference between good doubt, bad doubt. It is our duty to know this. It also behooves us, can mean it befits you. It befits us Christians to know the difference of good and bad doubt. This rhyme will serve as our structure for the rest of what we're going to explore today, and we're going to explore 3 brief stories of Jesus and how he related to doubt. So first, doubt is good. My brother and I were, with wide eyes, staring out the window of our sliding glass door. We were in Minnesota as kids, and we were staring out to the backyard. There were a bunch of tall trees back there, and there was an ominous sound coming from out there. My brother's here today, and he might have already caught on to where this is going. But the sound was something like this. Well, my dad was out there, and my dad had helped us build this awesome tree fort. And it had this cool enclosed room, this section of the tree fort, but it also had this platform out beside that room. And not only that, but our awesome dad had put a zip line from that platform down to a tree way over there. And we had, oh man, this tree fort was a dream. We had waited so long. Dad helped us get it done. But now he was out there cutting down a different tree. And my brother and I were staring out the window from the safety of our home with our doubts as to where this tree he was cutting down would fall. Now, my dad had no doubts. Oh, yeah, I'm going to cut it like this. It's going to fall right there between these 2 trees, and don't worry about it. As we hear the first crackling sounds and the tree begins to tumble, whose doubts were confirmed? The tree fell right on our tree fort. Was it good for my brother and I to have our doubts? Yeah, it was good. And perhaps Dad might have learned a lesson that day to maybe have a little more doubt and a little more pause for examination. Apparently, falling trees landing in the wrong spot can run in our family because my father-in-law was cutting a tree down just a couple years back in Walla Walla, and it landed right on the deck of Charlene, Candace's mom. So anyway, no more tree felling for us. So doubt can be good. I think about phone scams. Any of you know somebody, or perhaps yourself, that has lost money to a phone call where they posed as the bank or the Amazon specialist or the security system person, and they did not have, you or your friend did not have enough skepticism, and eventually you lost perhaps thousands of dollars to the phone scam. Is doubt good in that case? Of course. I think of overconfident Christians sometimes. There are maybe those among us that are maybe a bit confident in our beliefs. We could perhaps use a little bit more pause and some good doubt. We might perhaps need to hold some things a little less tightly, if that makes sense. I think about some Christians that would be screaming through the airwaves or even screaming on the street, this way, or this. Doubt can be good. So what about when it comes to God? What about when it comes to our belief in God, our worldview, our doctrines? What about when it comes to the Bible? Is doubt good when we approach those subjects? I think it would be good to define the term for a minute. So I'd like to divide the church right now, right down the middle, into two camps. And one camp, I'm sorry, the other camp, good on you. We're going to define doubt a little bit further, and we're going to say doubt is good in the sense of discerning skepticism. Discerning skepticism kind of doubt. And the other kind of doubt, unbelief. So you folks over here, you have discerning skepticism. And if I motion this way as we talk this morning, you'll know that when I'm talking about the good doubt, I mean that good kind of pause. And if I motion over here to these unbelievers, you'll know I'm talking about that bad kind of doubt, the unbelief. So doubt is good. God doesn't he welcome our questions? Doesn't he want a relationship with us, some give and take? Doesn't he want to, as the song was saying, I was thinking about sometimes it takes a mountain. Doesn't God want to bring us through valleys and mountains that would give us doubts and questions and make us wrestle? Because on the other side of that, our faith will be strengthened. Ladies, I think about when you first met the one that you're with now, perhaps your husband or boyfriend, when you very first met them, were you 100% sold, ready to walk down the aisle? Some of you are nodding yes. I know my wife would be saying no. Or did you have some questions first? Did you need to get to know this person more? Did you have your doubts? Did you have some discerning skepticism? Did you need to vet this guy a little bit? I would think and hope, yes. I have a message to the youth, or perhaps junior high, youth, college age. Can I just reassure you for a moment that this is something I learned in college, but for some reason I didn't catch it until then. But doubt is a normal part of the Christian walk, isn't it? Isn't doubt a normal part of our relationship with God? In fact, you should go through a season of doubts where you are questioning everything. I remember crying, literally crying. As a senior in high school, I asked the boys, the dean, right, the dean of the dorm, I said, can I go out to the tree over there, on the other side of the creek? And he gave me permission to go there. It was a little bit kind of far away on campus because I just needed to pray. And I prayed, God, be real to me was my prayer. I was searching. I was going through this natural, normal progression of the Christian faith, and I was seeking questions and what I believe, not just what I've been told, right? And I was praying, God, be real to me. And what the impression I got back from God, and I still remember it to this day, is the same exact phrase. Be real to me. I was making it about me. God, be real to me. And God said, be real to me. And for some reason, that just stuck with me. And so, to the youth, to the college-age kids, to all of us, let us recognize that doubt is a good thing to question and to come to your own beliefs and conclusions. Didn't Jesus himself have his doubts? We think about the night before he was going to be giving his life and enduring incredible hardship and torture. Didn't Jesus have his own skepticism and questions? Did it manifest ultimately in unbelief? Or did Jesus say, not my will, but your will be done? So doubt is good, but let's not confuse it with when doubt is bad. It behooves us to know the difference. Mark tells us a story about unbelief. I'd like to share this story from Mark 9, where Jesus had just come from the transfiguration with his disciples, 3 of the disciples, not all the disciples. So Jesus, having met with God, and who was it, Elijah, Moses, along with his 3 disciples, Peter, James, and John, they were coming back from the transfiguration, and they were encountering the rest of the disciples. And it says, when they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. Remember, arguing. We're going to come back to that. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and they ran to greet him. Jesus said, "What are you arguing with them about?" A man in the crowd stepped forward. He answered, "Teacher, I brought my son, who's possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth. He gnashes his teeth and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." That same year, when I was a senior in high school, this was back at Campion Academy in Colorado, there was an encounter with an evil spirit. There was a girl who was a junior. Her name was Marisol. And we didn't witness this. I didn't see it myself. But we had got word somehow to pray because this girl was having similar experiences. There was some sort of possession going on. The campus chaplain had been called, as well as another spiritual leader there in the community, had been called to come and pray over her. And I remember thinking, wow, this is real. Apparently, she was acting in a crazy way as this boy was before Jesus. And also, that same year, when we had math class, our math teacher was reading a book to us for worship every day before we started studying calculus. He was reading this book by Roger Morneau, A Trip into the Supernatural. Some of you, I'm sure, have read that book. And it recounts his experience with the occult, with Satan worship, with actually seeing things levitate and be thrown across the room, actually speaking with unseen demons. And so, as Jesus encounters this boy, I actually think about how the presence of evil can actually give us reason to believe that there is a God. Let me say that again. Many people in this world see evil and they think, of course there cannot be a God. Maybe we should see that there is evil. There is supernatural, unexplainable, horrendous things that we do to each other that could come from nowhere else but a supernatural force of evil. Now, we know God is dealing with that, but I actually think it's evidence of a supernatural struggle. So, Jesus encounters this boy, and he says, "You unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. And when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. It has often thrown him into fire or into water to try and kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. And Jesus says, if you can. Literally, the Bible has this question, this 3-word question. If you can, Jesus said, everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. You deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, he's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. Here in this story, we have an example of unbelief. So doubt can be good when it's discerning skepticism with an honest search for the truth. But doubt can also be unbelief. Unbelief can come from a place of despair, and it can also come from a place of arrogance. You know, arrogance where you might say, I doubt it. But it can also come from being beaten down over and over until you finally you don't believe anymore. Talk about being beaten down over and over. I think to RJ's fantasy football season. You know, for week after week, I just checked 8 weeks straight. You know, at the start of the season, somebody, when they embark on their fantasy football league, you know, their skepticism would cause them to say, no, I'm not going to win every game, but yeah, I'll probably win some, you lose some. So you have your doubts as to how successful you might be or whatnot, and that's, you know, that makes sense. But man, if you just get beaten week after week, he's here. You start to just have pure unbelief that even though the odds look good for this week, throw up your hand, it's not going to happen. I doubt it, you know? So doubt can look like despair. RJ just won last week, so that's good. You can congratulate him later. But unbelief can come from entitlement and pride and arrogance, and it can also come from despair. Last week, I was talking with a friend regarding a place of unbelief from pride and arrogance and that sort of thing. And really, we were talking about the mark of the beast because we had this Revelation short seminar with our Revelation expert here at Pacific U. And he had brought up, I'll try to just make it quick, but you know, the second beast in Revelation 13, and this idea that America itself, perhaps someday, will be this cause of a rejoining of church and state. Okay, now my friend that I was talking with last week, I'm pretty sure he's agnostic at this point. He has a lot of questions and skepticism, and I would say also has led him down this path to a lot of unbelief. And so I asked my friend, I said, okay, look out at America and the United States right now and turn on your TV and see our general culture or whatnot. What circumstances can you come up with? I want you to use your imagination. I'm going to ask you guys this question right now. What circumstances can you imagine would cause the United States of America to actually say, no, we need to get back to God, we need to be a church state, we need to rejoin church and state, as this professor was saying, you know, Revelation could be meaning. What circumstances could bring that about? He couldn't come up with any clue. It seems like we're just becoming more atheist and more agnostic, right? What possibly could make us just swing way the other way back to, whoa, we need to get back? And I said, well, I know something perhaps. signs and wonders from heaven. Isn't that what Revelation talks about? If right now fire was falling down from heaven, like literally we walked out there and everybody was coming out and they were seeing fire coming down, and let's say it consumed this house and not that house, and that building and not this building, and let's say the fire morphed into the shape of a speaking face and was talking about whatever it was saying, and we all were witnessing this, don't you think that would wake people up? Whoa, there's a supernatural thing going on here. We better get right with the Lord. So those are the circumstances, signs and wonders. Which brings me to the second story of Jesus that is my favorite. I love this story. The Pharisees had come to Jesus demanding what? They were demanding a sign. And Jesus says, you guys, you go out in the evening and you look at the sky and you forecast what's going to happen the next day. And you're pretty good at that. You can kind of predict the weather. You wake up in the morning, you look at the sky, you see the sky is red, and you determine what that means for the weather. You interpret those signs. And he says, this is from Matthew 16. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you can't interpret the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. Jesus then left them and went away. Why is this one of my favorite stories? The Pharisees demanding a sign. Jesus says, I'm not giving you a sign except the sign of Jonah. How long was Jonah in the belly of the whale or the fish? 3 days, right? How long was Jesus dead? 3 days. Jesus is referencing here that the sign that will be given to them is his crucifixion, and 3 days later, his resurrection. That is the ultimate sign. Now, the reason this gets me going is because I have a lot of friends that are agnostic, perhaps even totally atheist at this point. And I bet that a lot of you know people personally, or perhaps even somebody here this morning or watching, online or later or whatnot, yourself perhaps are agnostic. You have total doubts to the point where you say, I don't know. That's what agnosticism means. I don't know. And the story gets me going because a lot of those people demand a sign. They would say, like Thomas did, hey, I'd believe if Jesus came through here right now and he showed me this and he performed a miracle, then I'd believe. And to that, I think it's an individualistic perspective. It's all about you. It's a little bit more of the I doubt it kind of entitlement spirit than it is, in my estimation, than it is the honest searching sort of spirit. Does that make sense? And so what I think Jesus is showing us here is that we, as members of humanity, we've been given sign after sign. Have you not been given the sign of Jonah? Have you not been given the sign after sign of Jesus predicting this or his scriptures predicting that and it coming to pass and it coming true? Oh, but you want a prediction in your life, in your circumstances? You want to actually see it yourself with your own eyes, Thomas? We're all telling you, you can believe. We saw it. We saw him alive. Jesus told you this would happen, but you want to see it yourself. This is our individualistic 21st century way of thinking, where it's all about me. But no, you're part of this thing called the human race, and we've been given sign after sign, and that's why that story gets me going. So doubt is good, But doubt can be bad when it leads to unbelief. Knowing this behooves us. It has power in your heart. So give it all to Jesus. Where in your walk with Jesus, or your walk with your church family, or Christianity in general, where do you have abiding questions, some skepticism, some honest searching? And where do you have, because I think we all do, where do you have some straight unbelief? Do you really believe that God will never leave you or forsake you? Do you really believe what Jesus just said in this first story, that nothing is impossible to them that believe? Do you really believe that there is a good Father? Really? You believe there's a loving God? Because I'm seeing a lot of horrible things going on. And you really believe? You have no unbelief when it comes to there being a loving, all-powerful God? Man, how many people have left the church or have not believed or have not come to faith because of this good God, bad world dilemma, this great controversy that we just seem to cannot make any sense of? I like to watch debates sometimes. Anybody here like to kind of witness a good argument? I can find myself on YouTube seeing speakers presenting different topics, or perhaps on the news when they bring on a panel of two differing perspectives and you kind of hear the different sides and they debate. I'll admit, I kind of enjoy debates. I kind of enjoy the arguments, the reason, the logic, and when somebody can be kind of stumped and shown that the reasoning is not sound. Apologetics, when it comes to defending the Christian faith, is also something that I enjoy because it's in the same vein of debate. And one of the biggest examples would be, evolution, right? You can find lots of debates on creation versus evolution. In fact, I taught here at this school for a few years. And in science class, I remember, and perhaps one of you parents here was the one that asked me, I'm trying to remember who it was. No, it was a different one, so we're good. In 9th and 10th grade, we were studying biology, and there was a portion in our textbook, and I didn't skip over it. It was about evolution. I was teaching evolution to the kids, and I got a little bit of a discerning skepticism about that. So parents had their doubts. And they said, why are we talking about this? So here's a pet peeve of mine. Somebody could be raised to believe that God created everything, and then along comes this idea they discover when they're a teenager or in junior high or whatever. Along comes this idea of evolution that seems to put a hole in this argument. And they say, oh man, I always thought it was this way, but the counter argument, what am I going to do now? And here's my pet peeve. So many times we don't look at the counter-argument to the counter-argument. We don't follow things to their logical conclusion. We hear one thing, and then we hear the counter-argument, and then we say, oh, well, those are the two perspectives. Well, what's the counter to the counter? And then, when you find that, is there a counter to the counter to the counter? Does that make sense? Here's one more example. Ellen White was a plagiarist. We have evidence of her quoting places and not giving any credit. She wrote all these books. They're not all her words. She's a plagiarist. Okay, well, some discerning skepticism would say, okay, well, what's the counter to that? Because there are experts in Ellen White. I have some friends that are going to be watching this. They're like, who's this Ellen lady? What's the counter argument to that? And what's the counter to that? Follow things to their logical conclusion as you seek to reason and you honestly search things out. So let's get to Thomas. Thomas was a righteous mess. We give him a bad rap, and we're all a bit of a righteous mess. We're in this series of different characters in the Bible that were less than perfect, or they exhibited belief or behavior that perhaps was less than perfect. But Thomas is definitely the most famous doubter of all. And so in this last story that we encounter of Jesus and how he related to doubt, we're going to go to Thomas. In John 20, Jesus says, or John says, that now Thomas was one of the 12. He was not with the disciples when Jesus came, when Jesus first appeared to the disciples. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." We saw this skit just earlier, didn't we? "We've seen the Lord." But Thomas said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." You tell me, was that a spirit of, "I doubt it"? Or was that a spirit of, "I doubt it"? A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. And though the doors were locked, here's a sign for you, here's some evidence for you, and though the doors were locked, Jesus came and was among them. And he said, "Peace be with you." And he looks at Thomas. "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." And Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." Did Thomas have to see Jesus to believe? Or could he have believed on the testimony of his friends? Do we not believe on the testimony of God's word and on the testimony of those who have gone before us? Do we not? How many of you have seen Jesus personally and put your finger in his hands? I know I haven't. Someday, praise the Lord. But blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. Thomas did have reason to believe. He had walked with Jesus for years. He'd seen the miracles Jesus had performed. Jesus predicted that this would happen. The sign of Jonah was coming. His trusted friends, the other 11, said, "We saw him." So Thomas had plenty of reason to believe. But he has fallen into a bit of unbelief. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. I want to close with one more quote. It's a different perspective, perhaps, on this Thomas story. It's the perspective of some lady named Ellen. She writes, "In Jesus' treatment of Thomas, Jesus gave a lesson for his followers. His example shows how we should treat those whose faith is weak and who make their doubts prominent. Jesus did not overwhelm Thomas with reproach, nor did he enter into controversy with him. Jesus didn't argue with him. He didn't say, hey, here's the evidence, here's the evidence, here's the evidence, here's the reason. It says, he revealed himself to the doubting one. Thomas had been most unreasonable in dictating the conditions of his faith, but Jesus, by his generous love and consideration, broke down all the barriers. Unbelief is seldom overcome by controversy. I'm tempted to go to the debates to go to the reasons, to go to the arguments. Are you ever? To show the rightness. I think many of us as Adventists in the past and maybe even now, we like to go there. But, it goes on, but let Jesus in his love and mercy be revealed as the crucified Savior, and from many once unwilling lips will be heard the acknowledgement of Thomas, my Lord and my God. As the praise team comes back out, I submit today to you, to all of us, let us have that same acknowledgement, my Lord and my God. May we, of course, have a relationship with the God who loves us, who is eternal, who is truth, can handle all of the discerning skepticism. But may we submit all of the unbelief to him. Doubt is good, doubt is bad. Knowing this behooves us. It has power in your heart.